This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into another episode of Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I am Brandon Spinner, as always joined by Michael Burns. Mikey, my man, it is the week. It is here. Opening day is tomorrow.
I'm always as a Cubs fan excited for opening day because, hey, we got a chance. It's our year.
Mm-hmm. This is the year. That was the sign you'd always see in the bleachers until about June.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's on a decent
Some
year.
years that's pushing it. Yeah, on a decent year until the mid-2000 teams. But yes, it was opening day. This is our opening day podcast for 2023. Otherwise, how are you doing outside of baseball? Just how's the last week been for you?
Doing good.
Busy? You had a fantasy baseball draft this weekend?
Busy. Fantasy baseball draft, pre-draft golf tournament, and then the NCAA men's basketball.
That's right.
The Bama game was right before the draft. So imagine doing a golf scramble, going to a friend's house, all watching the basketball game, and then doing a live auction draft.
So you guys weren't tipsy at all.
No one got hurt in the process of that day at all.
What about feelings?
Injuries.
No injuries, but what about feelings?
We'll say most of us are men in the group, but we did have.
Hey, men have feelings too.
Maybe one case of the roid rage a little bit.
Oh. Man, I didn't know Tommy was like that.
You think Tommy's on roids?
Kidding. No, not at all. Well, you've seen his mustache. You would think that his mustache is on roids. It's a killer mustache. But this is Barrels and Barrels opening day episode. This is going to be our predictions episode. But before we get into the nitty gritty, I do want to give a big shout out to all of those listeners out there. I talked with Joseph Campbell over the last couple of days. But anybody who listens, we love you. We thank you. And if this is your first time listening to us, thank you for joining and thank you for listening. We hope that we give you the best listening experience possible. You can find us on YouTube, which some of you may be watching us right there now. Also on Instagram, Barrels and Barrels Pod, and that is the same spot. You can find us on Facebook at Barrels and Barrels Pod. Twitter's Barrels and Barrels, and also we've got an email, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're now on Stitcher, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio Podcasts. And please, if you haven't done it already, leave us a review. We've got 13 5-star reviews out of 13 reviews on Apple Podcasts. We need more on Spotify. We need more on YouTube. And we now need some on Facebook because there's a little turd over the weekend who was not happy with a comment that I made on Facebook. So he downvoted us on Facebook because I made a joke about the Astros. So we need your help. We need the Barrels and Barrels hive. Kristen calls us the barrel heads. I need all the barrel heads to go out there. If you're on Facebook, just go to our Facebook page. If you're not liking us or following us on Facebook, go check us out there. But also leave us a recommendation, 5 stars hopefully, to get our rating back to the top. That is it for the business to start off with. Let's jump into the bourbon business. This is a bourbon and baseball podcast, and we're going to start with some of my favorite, one of my favorite releases of the year so far, Michael. This is one that I saw when they were saying it's coming out this year. I was so stoked.
I remember you saying.
Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series. And the Origin Series means this is all their juice. So for the last several years since they opened, I believe it was 2016, they've been putting out bottles like Fusion, Discovery. They've done different collaborations, but a lot of that has been sourced from MGP, some other different distillery juices in there mixed in as well. Like Fusion it's about 60% to 70% their own, and then other Kentucky juice. This juice in this bottle here, and in this bottle here. Oh, no. We just had our...
Goodness.
Did
you spill?
I caught it.
Oh, I thought you just knocked the bottle over. I know you almost spilled your Glencairn.
Well, there's a couple drops on the table, but you got to go check that on YouTube. We're going to have to do a reel on this one for Instagram. But these two bottles, and there's a third one that just released this week or last week, I believe. That is the rye. We will not be sampling the rye tonight, but we have the white label and the black label. We're going to start off with the white label. So this is
both of them here, Brendan. I've got both
you
of
got
them
both
ready
of them.
to go.
You have both of them ready to go, right there with your pink hat.
My pink hat for National Women's Month, right? Pink hat,
Yeah.
pink hat, pink shirt.
Let's go.
And then my
So
pair of
Bardstown
bourbons
Bourbon
right here.
Company. Yeah, pair of bourbons right there, right in Michael's chest. So white label. We're jumping in with this Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series. This is their high rye bourbon. So the mash bill on this puppy, and that's the great part of what I love about Bardstown, is they put the mash bill right on the bottle for you. Not everybody does that. This is 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% malted barley. That may ring a bell because that is the exact same mash bill as the high rye from MGP. So they're going the same way because they were sourcing from MGP. Why change the recipe when you know it's been killer and it's been good?
That's your brand. It's your name. That's your profile.
So this is a 6-year. It comes in at 96 proof, so 48% alcohol by volume. Again, 6 years. So they waited 2 extra years from when a lot of people would be putting out their juice. So 6 years is going to be out there. And the best part of this, $44.99.
Say what?
Yeah, so $44.99 just for this white label.
For Bardstown juice?
For Bardstown juice, straight up Origin Series. That is the MSRP. I'm sure you're going to find it other spots where they're jacking up the price, but it should be $44.99, and that's what I bought this puppy at in Southwest Ohio. Again,
yeah, sure,
100. Yep, 100% Bardstown juice. BBC, right
How
there.
long you had that bottle, Brandon?
I got it in mid-January.
And it's half gone.
I got both of them in mid-January.
Over half gone.
They're both over half gone. So that tells you how much I have enjoyed it so far. So you've poured it. I poured it. I spilled some of it.
How's your paper think of it?
My paper survived it. The table and the cardboard box, which I'm using as a prop for YouTube. So that's another shameless plug to go check us out on YouTube because you can see what's going on. You could see my very athletic catch of my Glencairn falling off the box.
Well, you didn't have such small hands, Brandon. Then you'd be able to hold all that.
I got Johnny Bench hands, man. Can hold like 7 cheeseburgers. Isn't that what it is? So right off the bat, what do you get on the nose?
I'm having trouble picking up notes because I just get like a oily smell right off the bat.
I've got an orange peel. That's like the first thing that jumps off into my mind, like orange peel.
I definitely don't get like oak. I don't get oak right away.
No, I got a little bit of cinnamon, leather, and orange peel. I don't have the oak there though.
I wonder, maybe I'm coming out with COVID and can't smell or taste anything. That'd be an awful bourbon review, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be terrible because you're probably going to DFA it then. This is awful. I couldn't taste or smell, so it's trash. We are not to that point yet. Yeah, very citrus forward for me. Orange peel. I get some lemon zest.
Yeah, I can get that. I don't get
2 nostrils.
I don't get like a deep. Maybe I do get a little bit of deep fruit with like a light oak if I really get into this glass. Now. Yeah,
2 nostrils. I get the oak.
And that's how I always do it, baby. Dive right in.
2 nostrils.
Dive right in. But it's got a nice color. It's not
golden.
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit more brown. I would say golden's more of like the spring. I mean, especially on my camera, and this I think it's golden. But I'd say it's a little darker than it looks. It's not like a light whiskey.
No,
it's a little darker.
It's 6 years. You can tell that it's been 6 years in the barrel.
So you got a little palate cleanser there, or
yeah. I've already been sipping on it. That's why it was poured before the show.
Oh. All right then. Well, give your notes and then while I get acclimated to it. What do you get off right off the bat?
Well,
on your,
I was going to actually talk more about Bardstown while you get acclimated, and then we'll dive into the palate. If you haven't been to Bardstown Bourbon Company yet, it's one of the coolest experiences. It's one of the most beautiful distilleries. It's very new, but it's more of an experience when you go there. Their kitchen is fantastic. very good food, and the experience itself. You've just got to go check it out. Bardstown itself, the entire city with all the distilleries around, awesome. But if you're in Bardstown, you have to check out Bardstown Bourbon Company, BBC, because it is fabulous, and we're going to have to go there and go check it out as a podcast. And if you're in town, I believe mid to late September is the Kentucky Bourbon Fest. So I think that's September 17th and 18th. I may be wrong. Might be 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'll put that out on our Instagram as well as on YouTube. You can see it actually as I'm talking about it right now. So you've got that first drink, the palate cleanser. What are you thinking on the notes there, Michael?
The texture smells just like it tastes. It's oily, and it coats your mouth very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then right away I get into that rye. Not too spicy though. It's a good rye flavor. There's a little bit of spice to it. I think if you handed this to a bourbon aficionado, they would be like, "Why is it spicy?" So, I'm trying to pull out more than that. I took with the one big sip to get the chew going. But first, I just get that rye explosion. As I'm talking and getting a little bit like buttery notes on the front of my mouth. Still not. As it lingers more, maybe some oak on the back end, but it's not oak heavy. It's not oak heavy. It's more butterscotchy heavy.
Yeah, I thought it was thin to start. Like, I thought there'd be more legs to it up front. I think it builds a little bit more for me towards the back half of the mouth. I get that orange zest just in that orange peel, just like I did on the nose. And I do have that rye pepper, and it's not a spicy pepper to me. And I don't think it's overpowering. It's very similar to MGP stuff. It's got a sweetness to it as well for the higher rye mash bill. To me, I wrote down cinnamon spice on the back end, almost kind of like you have a big red piece of gum. You know how it tingles for a little bit? That's like the cinnamon tingle that I get.
Yeah, so you know what this reminds me of, and I wonder if you have it right there. The blue popcorn. This is all I can think of is when in the back end as it just sits. This just reminds me of popcorn. If I'm eating popcorn, like you eat popcorn and that butter just sits on your tongue. That's what I could compare this to. I just took a mouthful of good movie theater popcorn, and it's just sitting on my tongue. Not up front. Up front, it's definitely got what you're talking about, that big red spice up front, the rye. But then as I'm done sipping and I'm just enjoying it in my mouth there, it's like I knew you were going to laugh at that. I knew. As I enjoy it in my mouth, then it's like I took a handful of movie theater popcorn and ate that, and that's what's on my palate.
To me, it's exactly flip-flopped. Like, it's the front half for me that's the buttery and the sweet and the like the savory, the sweet and savory up front, and then it turns more cinnamony and peppering on the back end. To me, it builds. It starts thin and then builds to have a little bit more.
I could see what you're saying.
It grows legs the longer you've had it.
I would say it's almost like what you're talking about in the front end. You get the buttery. It's like more like a not caramel taste, but like the caramel candy. It's like you pop that square into your mouth, but this is a butter. And then here comes the rye, followed by some oak, and then the movie theater popcorn. That's my beginning to end right there.
Yeah, as we discussed, I'm kind of reverse, but either way, good thoughts there. Okay, so now's the time. On our Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast rating scale, which goes from Hall of Fame, top of the top, 1% of baseball players make it to the Hall of Fame, followed by All-Star, just underneath a Hall of Famer. Not necessarily going to be the best bottle on your shelf, but it's one of those that you want to back up to the backup. Everyday player comes in after that. That is the guy that's always on your bar, always in your baseball lineup. And then behind that is the bench player, someone who steps in every now and then, mixes things up. You're not pouring this every day or every week, but it's something to mix it up. And then finally, designate for assignment. That's the end. Get off my team. Get out of here. Mikey, where do you have this?
I think I'm going to bench this guy. It's got a nice, I think I'm benching it for the flavor a little bit. It's a little too buttery for me. Not enough oak, not enough vanilla, not enough deep fruit. Um, it got a great, I think, body to it. Like the oil that coats your mouth well. It lingers a little bit, but it's not the right flavor profile for me. It's not oaky enough. It's not. It's a little almost, I guess, too much movie theater popcorn for me.
You and that popcorn. I'm going to go. I'm kind of torn. I'm in between bench and everyday player. I think the thing that makes this more of an everyday player for me is the price.
True.
$44.99. It's hard to beat that. But also, I wish that there was a little bit more to it. Like I said, it's a little thin up front. I wish there was a little more of a body to it all. But I've got to go everyday player. It's good enough to be on my shelf all the time. I mean,
you almost spilled that bottle again.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, I'm going to go with everyday player on this one. I mean, I've had a decent amount of it, I'd say. Look at that.
Destroyed.
And I've only given you that one sample. That's it.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're a happy sample giver, and
I am. Yeah, so here's the thing. If somebody emails us with the first person to email us, I'll give sample to.
I bet you won't. I bet you listeners won't. I bet you won't email them. Do it. Free bourbon.
Free bourbon. barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. So again, barrels, the letter N, barrels@gmail.com. First person I'll send a sample to who sends us an email. So go ahead and do that.
Hold on,
Michael,
Brendan.
this
Hold on
does.
a second.
Hey.
Hold on.
Hey. No. Friends and family. Nope.
Can I text my wife?
Nope.
Hey, honey, go message. Go message Brandon that you listened and want the sample.
No friends and family, buddy.
What crap?
Well, that is it on the first bourbon of Bardstown Bourbon Company, White Label, the Origin Series. So go check it out. Michael goes with the bench. I go with an everyday player. As he goes again, trying to text his wife to send an email to get another sample. You are not getting another sample.
Just texting my neighbor.
Just texting your neighbor. Yeah, your neighbor. I'm not sending Fayek one either. So moving on, we are moving on to the baseball portion of this podcast. We are going to dive into our predictions of this podcast. This baseball season, opening day is tomorrow. We are both excited and we are both ready to get down to our predictions. I've been really excited about this here the last couple of weeks. I've had thoughts and I've been planning this, so I'm excited to actually put pen to paper.
Yeah?
Yep.
You're pretty confident in your predictions?
Oh, I'm very confident.
You know what the hardest thing is predicting what you believe will actually happen and what you want to happen.
Yeah, that's called wish casting. But yeah, you have to separate the two. You kind of want this to happen, but also, is that realistic? That's the big question. And the cool part is we're going to be able to look back in a couple of months, whether that is October, September, whatever it is, and look back and see, oh yeah, I made this prediction correct, or I got this prediction completely wrong. So it's cool, it's fun, and I think we're going to have a good time with this. So let's get it done.
All right, here we go. That's what's fun about doing these predictions and putting it on paper and then looking back and being like, God, you suck.
Yeah, well, let me remember and remind people who didn't suck last year. Who was the only guy who picked the Astros to win the World Series in our playoff prediction show last?
Who? That wasn't easy. That was a pop-out pick.
Easy, schmeezy. Still went against the grain. I picked the winner. Going to keep reminding you that. So let's get right into it, my man. So we are going to jump right in with the AL East. The AL East matchup. Who is your AL East champion in the 2023 season? Michael.
So the only team that's not competitive in that division is the Red Sox.
Don't tell me.
They're not. They're not going to. There's no chance. I would bet money, lots of money, that they would not win the division. Lots of it. You got the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Rays, and the Orioles. I think the Orioles are too young. I think the Rays just don't have it. They're good. They're a decent team, but they don't have it. The Yankees, if a couple of guys click, maybe they could. They'll be a good team. They've got Judge, they've got Eric Cole, they've got Carlos Rodon, the hype around Anthony Volpe. But I think that the Blue Jays have
Hmm.
all of it in that division. They've got the hitters, they've got some great pitchers. I think they pull away finally and win the division AL East.
And I am going to jump right on that train as well. I'm going with the Blue Jays. Yeah, that team, I don't think that there's a weak spot in that lineup. You look at it from top to bottom, maybe Cavan Biggio.
He's platooned, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, right. Like, so you've got Vlad, you've got all these guys, and you got a stud rotation. I think you got 2 Cy Young candidates right there at the top.
Yeah, Bo Bichette,
That's another name.
Vlad,
Yep. George Springer out in the outfield. I mean, geez.
Matt Chapman looking to bounce back.
And that's another name. And it's going to be hard to beat that team, especially with the Yankees,
yeah.
the injuries that they've had the last couple of weeks with Rodon and all that. So
Right.
we're both picking the Blue Jays out of the AL East. Now, let's head on into the central parts of the United States with the always competitive AL Central.
Always competitive. No one wants to step up and win and try super hard in that division.
Yeah, I believe the Guardians won last year with 90 wins, but the White Sox were supposed to be the best team in the league last year. They didn't do anything. The Twins took a little bit step forward. That's actually going to be the team I'm going with this year. The Minnesota Twins are my team out of the AL Central. So the Twins, they've got Correa back out in the outfield, Buxton. And then also the one question mark I would have is the rotation a little bit. But otherwise, I mean, the team is better under Gabe Kapler. And the other question is the rest of that division is trash. The Royals, the Tigers, they're bad. The Guardians, they're still really young. And that's my biggest question when it comes to that team. So that is why I'm going with the Twins. I think the Guardians last year were the youngest team.
So exactly what you just stated for the Guardians is why I'm picking the Guardians. They've got a staff. They've got even guys behind that are that some depth in that staff. Stephen Kwan broke out last year. Jose Ramirez, with these rule changes, should just even have a better year. He's the most one of the most consistent since Trout of the late 2010s. J-Ram is so consistent. Andres Jimenez, Oscar Gonzalez, I think, is on that team still. Yep. Shane Bieber is going to break back out and have a great year this year. I wanted to pick. I actually looked at the Twins first, and then I pulled up the rotation, and they've got too many question marks in the field too. I think with
I agree.
Jose Miranda, just hasn't taken off. Alex Kirilloff was supposed to be a stud and just injury. So they could put it together if Miranda and Kirilloff do well, and Correa has another great year. I really wanted to pick Buxton, of course. I really wanted the White Sox to pick the White Sox. It's been fun following them since when the Cubs were down. Andrew Vaughn going back to his position, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert. But I pulled up the rotation.
Yeah, I think you've got Giolito, Lynn, Cease is the starter, Clevenger, somebody else. Who's that other guy? Kopech, that's right. Is he healthy? Is he healthy?
And he's back, but it's not an awful rotation, but it's just I have a hard time counting on them.
Well, the big thing is it's all right-handed. 5 right-handers.
True.
So
True.
You're going to get the same thing from the same right side over and over and over again. So you need something to mix it up. Yeah, and I mean, is this going to be the year of Yoan Moncada? He plays better in odd years, and this is 2023, so it's every other year for him. You mentioned Vaughn over to first base. Is he going to fill the shoes of Jose Abreu? I mean, you just lost your captain. I mean, Tim Anderson is your captain now, but Yasmani Grandal, you've got an outfield where in right field you've got a rookie playing, and then the big questions are like, are these guys going to stay healthy? I mean, Eloy, is he going to be around? I mean,
Robert too.
Yeah, Luis Robert, who misses a lot of time. And I mentioned Tim Anderson. He's been a pivotal player. I mean, he's just got the backing of Mike Trout, but if he's not in the lineup, you're not going to win. I think I saw a statistic that he played 90 games last year. So, and the team is like well under 500 when he's not in the lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see what that White Sox team looks like. They were supposed to be the team that won it all last year, and they fell very short.
I still think the White Sox still finish in front of it. I think it's Guardians, White Sox, Twins.
Okay.
I'm putting your prediction down in third place.
Oh, yeah. All right. I see how it is. So you have the White Sox second in that division and the Twins in third. I would go probably Twins, Guardians, White Sox. I do think the Twins are either hit or miss. They're either going to win this division or they could finish in fourth because I think the Tigers could jump up into the middle of that conversation.
Oh, you think
depending
so, huh?
on injuries. Yeah, I think they're better than the Royals, that's for sure. And they have Javi, so I always root for Javi. Right. And, well, Detroit was actually a sexy sleeper pick last year. A lot of people thought that they were going to overperform their number, and that just didn't happen.
That makes me sad though about the Royals because I got Vinny P in my big money, big fantasy league.
Yeah, you've been all about him. Like
Vinny P, baby.
Pasquantino? Pasquantino. Vinny P. Sitting there at first base, correct? I think that's where he's at. At least that's where he's at in your fantasy lineup. Right. Staying in the American League, we're going to move on to another division. That is the AL West. This one has been pretty much dominated for the last 6 or 7 years. 8 years? 8 years? Is that how long it's been?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So the AL West, Michael, who do you got?
I'm going 9 years. Astros. I don't think you look at their offense. They added to it. They lost Correa last year. They didn't miss a beat with Jeremy Pena, and they just added Jose Abreu at first base. What's the Kyle Tucker is just going to take another step. I think Alex Bregman is going to be Alex Bregman. Jose Altuve is going to have 9 fingers in play. I think they've got some pitching that will keep going. Hunter Brown, Justin Verlander mechanics. I think they just roll it again. I don't think anybody in the AL West is going to push them out.
I think it's going to stop at 8 years this year. I think there's always a little hangover after winning the World Series, and they did that. McCullers has been a little slow this spring. Framber, we're questioning that hamate bone. Will that be able to last the entire year?
Not
Altuve's hurt. What's that?
Not Framber. Hamate bone. Who'd you say?
Yordan. My bad. Yordan and Framber, those are like the 2 World Series heroes for the Astros. So they're the same person in my head, but they're not.
That's Ohtani.
And they're both lefties. So just makes me go, what? Even more. So Framber is the ace of that rotation now. This will be the first time he's actually being asked to be an ace. I know Christian Javier or however you pronounce his name, he's probably going to be your 2 or 3 with McCullers, and then as you mentioned, Hunter Brown, right? That's his name?
Hunter Brown, yep.
So he's probably your 4 or 5, but I always think that there's going to be a little bit of a letdown after winning the World Series, right? There hasn't been a team that went back-to-back since the Yankees did in the late 90s. And it's hard to win a World Series on back-to-back years. So I don't think that they're going to win the division because there's another team who's actually back-to-back years put better and better ball on the field.
Gotten improved.
Yeah, they've improved. They've gotten better. And they've got a team that's young, hungry, and stood toe-to-toe versus that team in the playoffs. And I'm going with the Seattle Mariners to win that division this year. I think it'll be close. I do think it'll be close. And I actually think that there could be 4 teams in this division that play very good baseball. I think the Angels...
I don't think the Astros run away with it like they have in years past.
Right. I think this is going to be more of a bloodbath. And they're not playing as many games against the A's as they would be. They're playing other divisions a little more. Obviously, they're going to play the Reds, so they're going to get some wins there. They're going to play the Pirates. They're going to be playing the Marlins. They're going to be playing.
So we'll be a bloodbath a little bit in those games.
Yeah, but I think the Mariners take the step forward. They've got Kirby. They've got Robbie Ray. And they're going to have. Yep, they're going to have a decent rotation. I think that their lineup is probably better, even though they lost a couple of pieces. They got Teoscar. Right, he's going to be a big depth piece. They've got an outfield that's going to be hard to beat, and the team itself is well-rounded. I think defensively they were one of the better teams last year too. So with Scott Service at the helm, I think the Mariners finally win the division after what you said, 8 years for the Astros. That's my pick in the AL West.
Yeah, that's a good pick. They like you said, when they were in the playoffs against the Astros in the division series. Was it division series, I think, or championship
Yes.
series?
They won the first round.
Division.
No, it was the division series because the Astros beat the Yankees in the
They
CS.
lost like in the ninth inning by 1 run. Each game was like 2-0, 1-0,
They
2-1.
they got swept, but they had the lead in the first two games and lost it in the last couple of innings. And then they went into, was it the 18 inning game? One of them, right? They played an extra inning game. I thought it went 18 innings. That may have been the Guardians. Guardians, I know, won on a walk-off in 15 innings, I thought. Maybe that was the 18 in the... Whatever it was, I know that they lost by a sweep, but in those the sweeps, one was a walk-off by Jordan, right? Wasn't that the game winner or something where he had a 3-run home run, and then he had another solo home run? The Mariners were in it, and I think that they finally got the confidence after that they know that they can hang with the big bag Astros, which have kind of become the Yankees of our generation, if you think about it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like the most hated team in baseball that has been consistently winning since 2015. That's been the team. So that's my guess on the AL West. So to recap the AL, that is AL East. I'm going with the Jays, the Twins, and the Mariners. Michael, who are your teams?
I've got the Jays, the Guardians, the Astros. Well, I think we
we've got two
might
different
differ a
picks.
little bit in the wild card.
Yes. So I am going. There are three wild card teams.
The three wild card teams still was new to me because that's still just last year's rule. And I was like, these matchups don't when I was trying to like predict the matchups, I was like, something's not lining up. Oh, I got to pick a third team.
Yeah. So let's go with one by one. So I'm going to say the Yankees are my first wild card. We're going to put three wild cards. It doesn't matter where they rank, but I'm going to say the first team I'm telling you is the Yankees.
Yeah, Yankees are one of my teams as well. I think that's an easy one.
Last year they were the class of the AL East. Outside of some injuries, will DJ LeMahieu stay healthy? They've got a good lineup. They've got the MVP. They've got a rotation that is very good, could be great, depending on injuries and whether Rodon stays healthy and if things kind of click together. Will they get some good rookie play? Will they continue to stay at the top of the division? No, I don't think so. I think the Jays overtake them, but I do think that they're a close second with that lineup. So I'm going with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Who's your second team?
My next one is your AL West pick, and it's the Mariners. I think the Mariners are going to be good enough to get in, but they're not going to win the division. I think the Astros still take that division, just the veteran experience. So the Mariners get in, but via the wild card.
And I'm going to go with your division winner for my wild card with the Astros. I do think the Astros are going to be still going to make it. They may not make the playoffs as a division winner, but they're still going to be a great team that makes it into the playoffs.
All right.
So as we look ahead into the second of our wild cards, I'm going to go with the Rays.
Really?
Yeah. The Rays, they're actually my third. They're just always there. They always seem to be there. So I think that the Rays are probably going to be a competitor in that division. It's going to be tough. That division's tough. But I think that they're going to be another team that continues to just show up and prove that they're part of that AL East. They're better than the Orioles. The Orioles just aren't there yet, I don't think. But, yeah.
How'd they improve from last year, would you say? Do you know how they improved from last year?
I don't think that they improved, but I don't think they lost much.
I'm just trying to dog on you a little bit. The Rays were 86 and 76 last year. If they're not gonna beat up on each other, that should improve.
Yeah, they're not going to be playing the division as much as they did the last couple of years with this whole schedule change. But yeah, I think I just don't think that they made too many subtractions. I know they didn't make too many additions.
Fangraphs has them at 80. They improved by one game, 87 and 75.
There you go.
So I was dogging on your pick, like, oh, how did your team improve, 86 and 76? Because my team, let's see, they improve? They improve, by 11 games.
All right, not bad.
But it's still lower than the Rays. I have the Angels with this last pick. Mike Trout into the playoffs.
About time.
Can him and Ohtani have one last ride? The Angels, Rendon healthy, and they're not counting on him. They signed Brandon Drury, who I think could be a sneaky pickup for them.
Plays first,
he hit
second,
well.
third.
Right, when Jared Walsh is hurt and can't play first, or he can slide over there. I think they're well-rounded. Mike Trout in the outfield again, Roman center. They don't.
The rotation's the biggest question mark for me. I just don't know outside of Ohtani, really.
They went and got Tyler Anderson.
Okay, Tyler Anderson.
The rotation.
Yeah, well, he had like that reclamation year last year with the Dodgers. Like, what was that? His first year under 3 ERA.
Yeah, so they have Tyler Anderson, Ohtani, Patrick Sandoval, who is still coming up. He is a good strikeout guy, low walk.
He the guy who played third base for the Giants?
Yeah, Patrick Sandoval. No, not as big as a belly. That's what's his name from the Mets?
Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, Bartolo. And then they've got Reed Detmers, who's going to bounce back, I think. When he first came up, he was a stud. High strikeout. Yeah, Trash Panda. And just because I think they have other Trash Pandas coming, other guys in their system, because how many years ago did their entire draft, they did all pitchers, how many rounds? 20 rounds, 25 rounds, all pitchers. And it could pay off.
Was that 2021?
So yeah, that's why I've got the Angels taking that last spot, beating out the Texas Rangers for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very fun season. There's going to be a lot of teams, I think, that are going to be in contention for that final wild card in the AL.
Orioles will be fun to watch. They've got a young team all coming.
Orioles, the White Sox still could be there as well. It's going to be interesting. The Guardians, the Twins. I do think it's mainly the AL East, and then maybe a team or two from the AL West. That's who I'm thinking when it comes to the AL wild card. So we'll keep an eye on that. And now switching gears over into the National League, as we are going to be picking our NL East, NL Central, and NL West division champions. And so let's start off with the NL East, probably the biggest and strongest division in the National League. And I'm going to go right out there. I'm going to start first. I'm going with the Atlanta Braves as my NL East champion. And there's the chop. Yeah, I know a lot of people thinking the Phillies maybe because of that team. They went to the World Series last year. However, Hoskins is out with the injury from spring training. And also, the biggest question for me is, while they're a very strong team, what's that rotation going to look like, right? Like just Aaron Nola, Wheeler?
Right. That's why I nicked him too. Rotation.
Yeah, other than them, I know you got Suarez on the back end. And then when you look at the Mets, I mean, there are some questions there. They've just lost your closer for the entire season because of the patella injury with Edwin Diaz. You had the Nimmo injury, which doesn't look as bad as it had looked earlier.
Right.
Yeah, and then you've got the two old pitchers at the start of your rotation.
39 and 40, I think.
Yeah, Scherzer and Verlander, which are making about $40 million a year, I think. Yeah, each. So you're going to have to watch for that. That lineup is decent. I mean, it's a good lineup, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on throughout the season regarding injuries. You've got Alonso out there. The rotation already dealing with some injuries with Quintana. There's a question mark when it comes to Senga as well. I mean, he's coming over from overseas. Sometimes they translate good or bad.
I think pitchers that come over adjust a little more easily than hitters because they just pitch. They do their game a little bit, where hitters have to learn the ball comes off this time.
Yeah, so we're going to have to watch that. That rotation has the potential to be boom or bust just because of injury and because of ineffectiveness. Now, turning to the Braves, I kind of feel like they are kind of the underdog when it comes to being looked at. Like the Phillies were in the World Series. The Mets spent all this money, but I don't feel like as many people are talking about the Braves as I thought they probably would have. I know they didn't do a whole lot, but
it's because the Braves didn't make any moves. They didn't. They only lost one player. I'd say.
Murphy, didn't they?
And so people are like, well, they didn't do anything to replace him.
Well, they added Murphy.
Yeah, if they improved a catcher, a good hitting catcher who's also one of the top 5 defensively as well, top 5 defensively and offensively maybe at the catcher position.
Yeah, so I think we both agree. We are both on the Atlanta Braves this year in the NL East. Michael Burns.
Yeah. So who do you got then in the NL Central?
You're not going to like this. It's hard for me to say as well, but the St. Louis Cardinals? Yeah. Hard to say. The Brewers really don't have much. They've got a great rotation, but their lineup's not great, and they traded Hader last year.
Pissed their clubhouse off when they did that. Pissed the clubhouse off.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2 great studs at the start of their rotation, and then I can't tell you who's on the back end. Their lineup doesn't really have much. Yelich isn't what he used to be. I can't tell you anybody else.
Rowdy Tellez.
Rowdy Tellez.
Jesse Winker.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they got Jesse this offseason, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They traded for him, didn't they? The Colton Wong. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they traded Colton Wong for
Jesse.
So, yeah.
Now, they do have a outfield prospect coming up. Can't remember his name.
Prospect.
Yes, prospect.
Yeah, so the prospects, I mean, those are some guys that you don't necessarily expect to get a ton out of. Their outfield, I mean, I think Lorenzo Cain might still be on the team, but other than that, that team does not scare me at all.
Now the Brewers have the rotation, I think, of the division.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to be relying on kids. I think they've got the guys I'm talking about is Garrett Mitchell and Sal Frelick.
The prospects.
Who are right there. And then even their top one prospect, Jackson Chourio, who are that's 3 outfielders that are highly regarded. And that's what they need. They have outfielders besides Yelich.
I mean, the Cardinals are the ones with the big lineup. They've got the guys who can hit, and I mean, 2 corner MVP candidates. So you got Walker coming up. So I'm going with the Cardinals. How about you?
And the thing is, you can talk. Me talking to you, I'm the same. It's the Cardinals. That offense, it could be pretty frightening. Goldschmidt just won MVP. Arenado is a freak of nature as well. Brendan Donovan is a quiet piece that can play everywhere. Jordan Walker could win Rookie of the Year. Tyler O'Neill, I think, will bounce back. He hit 34 home runs in 2021, and we only played a handful of games last year.
I mean, added.
So that could be a good offense. And then adding a starting catcher.
He who shall not be named. Yeah, so.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're both on the Cardinals in the NL Central. Now let's move on to the NL West, and I think we're both going to be on the same page on this one.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe. Who you got? Who are you going with, Mikey?
I've got the Padres. They're star-studded, man. They've got a full season of Juan Soto calming down. That was a huge add at the deadline last year. Did they lose on any bats this year?
Not that I can think of.
No. But they added another shortstop, Xander Bogaerts. So now, Machado, Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto.
Cronenworth.
I'm missing one. Jay Cronenworth. I'm missing one of the stars, aren't I? No, I got the 4. Trent Grisham. He's still with the team. He could break out. He was a highly regarded guy back in Milwaukee. And then Yu Darvish leading that rotation. No Musgrove.
Yeah, and you got Blake Snell on the back end as well. It's going to be a good team, man. It's going to be a good team. I think it's about time that they're going to take over for the Dodgers in that division. I am also going with the Padres in this year's 2023 NL West. I think they finally overtake the Dodgers. The Padres are star-studded, as you mentioned. You just listed off a bunch of these all-stars. It's basically an all-star team down there in San Diego. And the Dodgers really didn't do much in the offseason. They lost a lot.
The Dodgers sat in their butt. The Dodgers didn't do nothing this offseason.
A couple things, but
they're not star-studded.
No, not like they used to be.
Finally.
Yeah.
They just cut payroll to get ready to sign Ohtani.
Signing Ohtani. Well, that'll be next year. But this year, we're keeping an eye on the playoffs. I am going to go with the Mets for my first NL wildcard team. What about you?
I don't think they met enough, but I think that They've got Brett Beatty, who is a big bat that
Mm-hmm.
they sent down. He had a huge swing. Kind of disappointed that they sent him down for third base. But I think he'll be back. He'll be back up quickly, and he will help those injuries that they're having.
Yeah, so we both picked the Mets for our first wild card team. My second team is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. So that is the third team out of that division. I think that the injuries are going to hold them back a bit.
Now, hold on. Hoskins is out for most of the year, but Harper, there's could be back even earlier than expected. They're talking All-Star break at first, and now they're talking June.
It's still about a third of the season, 2 months of the season. So
yeah, right. But at least it's not half. Yeah, I have the Mets and then the Phillies as my two wild cards. But I'll save this comment for something later. So yeah, Mets and Phillies.
So we both have the two same first wild cards, and we both have the Dodgers out of the playoffs at this point. But I am actually going with
the Arizona Diamondbacks. Oh,
no, I'm sticking with the NL West, and I am going to go with the LA Dodgers to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I looking and trying to decide. Like the Dodgers have it. They've got the Dodgers have the rotation, and they have depth in that rotation. Even if they wait till the end of the year and they need someone to come into the bullpen, guess what? Here comes Walker Buehler to come to the bullpen.
Stud.
But they got a rotation of 5, and then they've got 2 studs waiting in AAA.
Oh,
who've already pitched some of the major leagues. But I think it's Freeman and Mookie Betts, and that's their offense.
Lex is hurt.
They've got JD Martinez. They've got Miguel Vargas and Will Smith.
Yeah.
For the past Dodgers teams, it's not so Dodgery.
No, but they always seem to have somebody in the prospect system.
They do. They have a great system.
Yeah, so I think that they're still going to be able to overcome it. They still have some talent there, and I reluctantly are choosing the Dodgers to make it as my third and final wild card team in the NL. Who do you have? Are you going a different direction, or are you going to stay on path?
So looking at I wanted to put the Dodgers. I actually wanted to put someone else from the West. I wanted to put I think everybody in the West could compete except for the Giants. But the Diamondbacks and Rockies have no pitching. No pitching. Diamondbacks even have better pitching. Have a couple of guys coming up. But I don't have the Dodgers making the postseason.
No? It's funny. I mean, the Giants, they were in first place with 100-plus wins a couple years ago.
But then the year before, they were like last place.
Yeah.
They went last place, first place. I went real different. The Dodgers are not making the postseason.
No.
In my predictions here.
Wow.
I think
going off the board.
I think things are going to click right, and the Chicago Cubs are going to get that sneak into that third wild card spot.
Homer pick. Yeah. I mean, you think this is going to happen?
I think they have. I think things click right. Brendan Davis comes up. That bat hits. I think they've got pitching depth that people don't really know about. The Cubs in the second half had one of the best pitching staffs, and they didn't lose them. They just improved.
Yeah,
they just improved. They added Wenesky.
Where's Nesky?
They've got Javier Assad waiting. They've got Jordan Hicks. They've got DJ Hers. They've Caleb Killian. They've got it there. I think if things go right, that's where the Cubs could sneak into and fight for that spot. I think if they have any holes, they've got the farm system depth to trade for a piece that they need. Probably a third baseman. Probably a third baseman. But if that infield clicks on the shortstop second, first, and then the outfielders click as well. Cody Bellinger has a year. I think Trey Mancini is going to bounce back big this year, being healthy finally.
Right.
This spring training, he has been smashing them. And I think if those guys just hit, they don't have to be superstars, just hit. The Cubs are in the wild card.
Hey, I mean, they made some moves this year, so it's definitely going to be an interesting. They're going to be second in the division in my mind. They're going to be over the Brewers. But so Michael going off the page a little bit with the Chicago Cubs as his third and final wild card. So for the wild cards, we both have the Phillies and the Mets I have the Dodgers, and he has the Cubs. So we have set the stage when it comes to the division winners, as well as the AL wild cards and NL wild cards. And we're going to put a timeout on the baseball talk and go back into bourbon, because we are a bourbon and baseball podcast, and we are out. We are halfway through, or maybe a little bit more than halfway through our podcast. So we're going to go with another bourbon, and we are staying with the Origin Series. We talked about Bardstown Origin Series, the white label. That came in at 96 proof. Again, that one was 6 years, $44.99 when that came to an MSRP. Michael benched it. I gave it an everyday player. We are now moving on to the black label. As you see on YouTube, Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series, bottled in bond. So this is going to go along with the bottle and bond rules. 100 proof, but this mash bill is a weeded mash bill. Yeah.
Wait, Brandon, we're drinking 2 bourbons in 1 episode?
2 bourbons, 1 episode. We are
Joints, guys.
We're going crazy. Because we've got to go with Bardstown Origin Series, man. 6 years on this one as well. All of them, I believe, are 6 years, even the rye that we are not trying today. But that'll probably be on a future episode whenever one of us tries to find those ryes. So the mash bill on this one, are you ready, Mikey?
Yep.
68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% malted barley. So this is a little higher on the malted barley. The wheat is 20%, so the corn's a little higher than that 60-36-4 we had earlier. So this is a wheated bourbon. You would assume that it is going to be on the sweeter side of the two.
I like that nose.
Yeah, it's got oak to me right off the bat.
Yes. This smells like a good bourbon off the nose.
I've got the wood right off the bat. No, I just poured mine. Yours has been sitting for a little bit.
Mine's been in here for a good bit. I could definitely off the nose tell it is wheated. It's sweeter. I get corn, vanilla, caramel.
Yeah, the typical bourbon notes. I've got some cherry to it as well. That's been my go-to as of late.
Now, being wheated, it doesn't smell like Maker's Mark. You know, sometimes when you get to a wheated bourbon, they could give off a Maker's Mark's aroma, and this does not.
Mm-hmm.
It smells, like you said, a typical bourbon. It smells smooth.
It does. It does have a sweetness to it, I think. That there's some sweet notes to it. I'm having trouble pulling it out today.
Yeah, I noticed that in the first Bardstown there. But actually, I think now sniffing that one and then sniffing this one, I don't know that I struggled to pull notes out of the white label. I think they just weren't. It wasn't complex. I think it was a flatter bourbon. But this one, I definitely am able to. I mean, I just rattle off 5 or 6 notes right there.
Very heavy on the oak, I think, comparatively.
Yeah, and there's the same. I wonder, where in the warehouse these 2 different recipes sit. If they're different, if they're the same, how they pulled out of the oak a little bit. I mean, because it's still, I guess it is a little bit more corn. Not much.
Not much, 8% more. And they're both 6 years, so that variable is the same. So, yeah, definitely where in the rick house, what floors. Obviously, these are blended because these are batches and they're not small. No, they're not single barrels, and it doesn't even say small batch. So I'm assuming these are a decent-sized batch out of this.
Are they the same color? Pretty close?
Pretty close, honestly. It's hard to tell because one's got a black label, one's got a white label, so there's more light coming through on the white label, no matter what. So that makes it maybe look a little lighter. But there's not a whole lot of labeling on the bottle itself, which I love to see because the more labels, it kind of hides the color. Even the Fusion, trying to hold it up. I've got a bottle of Fusion signed by Master Distiller Steve Nolly. That looks about the same, so it's very consistent, and I do like that consistency. Have you given yourself
I got a first coat there and was very surprised. That slapped with a spice.
Mm-hmm. There's a little
I
more of a
don't.
spice than you would anticipate.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that. That was the first sip, but that was my first. Was a slap of spice. How about you?
This kind of reminds me of Vantage a little bit.
Advantage in what ways?
I think there's some complexities. I think that there's the Barrel Vantage had more of a spiciness to it. I think, and this does have that spiciness to it that you wouldn't anticipate with the wheat, right? There's no rye at all. It does have a little bit of a rye spice to it. I think it's silky, though. That's the way I would describe this.
Yes, this is definitely silky. I wouldn't compare it to Vantage though. I think Vantage is much more complex in my opinion. I think this is a
Rebel
rebel single
Wheater.
barrel, a rebel wheater. I think that's what this reminds me of. The rebel wheater though is spicier. I think this is a silkier version of the red label rebel, the distiller's collection single barrels.
Mm-hmm. It's buttery and silky to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed.
See, I get more of that popcorn, like a caramel corn, out of this one than I did with the white label.
I think I can agree with that, but I don't think that's all I got out of the white label.
Mm-mm.
This
Mm-hmm.
black label, I'm getting the oak. There's no rye. I feel like that rye
It's
slaps
peppery.
me, but yeah, I wish that lingered a little bit. Not in a spicy note, but in a peppery. You got that sweetness, and then you're waiting for something else for complexity reasons, to come back into the finish there. And I feel like just finishes too buttery again.
You think the finish is buttery?
I think the finish is buttery again. It's got a little bit of spice to it more than the white, but it's still a overly buttery movie popcorn finish. The up front though, the palate on the front though is much different than the white. It's definitely got a smoother kick to it.
Think from front to back, this is more well rounded.
Agreed.
So that's where I'm going with on this. Where on our Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon Baseball podcast rating scale do you go?
I'm trying to, as I drink it more, I'm enjoying it more. It is smooth.
Maybe we recircle. Maybe we go through some more baseball talk and then come
Yeah,
back with our
I still
rating.
got a lot of this back. Let's finish out um
Predictions.
our predictions for the teams, and then we'll get to our awards, and we'll come out with our award for this bourbon.
Well, sounds like a good one to me. Okay. So we have determined our playoff teams. When it gets to the playoff matchups, the only one we'll really talk about is the World Series. But let's break down the ALCS. I have two different teams that played in it last year. I know you don't have.
Oh, you have a matchup. I just have a champ.
I put a matchup. I know you put the L's champ because I did put that on our list.
That's what
but
you put as
I,
a note. You know.
you don't have to do that. I'm just telling you. I'm going to go with the Mariners over the Blue Jays in that.
Interesting.
Yes, I think it's two different teams. They're both younger. They both got the taste of the playoffs the last 2 years, or at least in the Mariners' sake last year. I do think the Mariners are going to head it to the World Series.
That would be fun for Mariners fans. I feel like they are owed that after waiting so long.
So,
I don't love my pick, but I just feel like stuff is gonna connect. They'll make additions. I've got the Yankees heading to the World Series.
ooh, the Bronx Bombers heading to the World Series, the Fall Classic. Yeah, I mean, they've been in the ALCS versus the Astros for how long? And they've always seemed to be the team that falls short.
Yep.
You think they finally make the step? Who do you like? I know you don't have it listed. Do you know who you would expect them to be playing?
The Mariners would be a good guess, or the Blue Jays would be a good guess. Well, I didn't do the matchup because I didn't play a whole. Like, all right, if these are the seeds, I didn't get that far. So I don't know how they would actually line up. But the
Right.
Astros, they were always facing the Yankees, and You just can you hear that? I was doing like a trash can.
Oh,
Or is my mic pulling that out?
I couldn't hear it. You might have your. Yeah, I still can't hear it. So your mic's either doing a really good job of muting it, or I'm just having a bad time. Yeah, and it's cutting out the background noise. I don't know. So
all right,
NLCS
NL champ.
NL champ. I went first for the ALCS. I want you to go first for the NLCS.
So all right, so the Cubs 2015 come out of nowhere. Win 97 ball games, win in the NL wild card, win the NLDS, and they get stuck in the NLCS. They just couldn't get quite over that ledge. And then you know what? 2016, they're looking like the favorite. They are looking like the favorite. They had some studs come up from the minor leagues, and in the very beginning of the season, their star left fielder collides with their center fielder, tearing his knee. And it looks like he is out for the year. Well, that team went on then to dominate the regular season, dominate the playoffs, and reach the World Series. And who other than did they fly in but Kyle Schwarber, their star left fielder, had the torn knee to come DH for them. I think that's the same script right here. The gods of baseball ran out of ideas. The Phillies, played 2015 just like the Phillies played 2022, just like the Cubs did for 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rhys Hoskins just tears his knee. I think he comes back for the World Series and DHs for him. And I think the Phillies are there in the World Series waiting, and Rhys Hoskins is there waiting for him. Same path.
So Michael Burns goes with the Philadelphia Phillies as its NLCS champ. I kind of have the same script, different team. Who fell short in the NLCS last year, getting beat by the Phillies? The Padres are the team, and the team that I think is actually going to make it out of the NL, making it to the World Series. I think the Padres have the studs on their team that you would look for. You've got Tatis, you've got Bogarts, you've got Manny, as well as who's that guy that they traded for? Juan Soto, right? That's his name. I think.
Is he good?
I think he's okay. Some people say like Ted Williams is a comparable. I don't know. I think he played okay when he was in the MLB. No, so they've got the hitting. I think they've got the pitching as long as they stay healthy. Obviously, health is going to be a factor for every team. Every team deals with injuries, but who is less injured and who has the depth to replace said injured people? I think that the Padres probably, if they get out of the NL West, I think that they're going to be the team that is going to be the team to beat, to be honest, going forward, because the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves are all going to be beating up on each other. I do have the Braves in the NLCS versus the Padres. I just think the Padres could beat the Braves. Both of those teams, I think, though, are fantastic. I'm just going to...
A great matchup.
Yeah, Padres-Braves, NLCS would be a stud matchup, especially with both of those teams, with how stacked they are on both sides of the ball, so to speak. Yeah. So, your matchup...
Strong pick.
Your matchup, the Yankees and the Phillies. Who do you have on top?
Who won in 2016? The story, you can't have that great story of Rhys Hoskins coming back and them not winning the World Series. Okay? The Phillies are going all the way. They just missed last year. They're going all the way this year, Brandon.
So 2009, they won. 2008, they won. 2009, the Yankees won. So back-to-back years were those two teams, but the Phillies lost to the Yankees in the World Series, didn't they? In 2009?
I couldn't tell you.
I thought it was the Phillies. I could be wrong. I think they beat the Phillies.
The only problem with my story there is, can Bryce Harper throw? And they have two DHs of Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins. I think Bryce Harper is going to be limping it in there at that point. I think he'll be able to throw at that point.
Yeah, the Yankees beat the Phillies in 2009 in 4-2. So this would be redemption in your mind, that the Phillies come back and beat the Yankees.
They kind of came out of nowhere as the 6th seed, I believe, last year. Snuck into the playoffs. went further than anybody else thought they would, and all they did was add. They added Trey Turner. Nick Castellanos is going to bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Harper's going to come and give them a boost mid-season. Reese Hoskins will give them that boost post-season.
GT Real Muto.
You see those puzzles just clicking together there, man? I mean, come on.
Thing that scares me for them is their rotation. That's my one question mark on that team. Once you get past Wheeler,
that's what you do at midseason. Trade deadline for.
Right. Got to get there. So you heard it here first. Michael Burns picks the Philadelphia Phillies to beat the Yankees in the 2023 World Series. My matchup: the Mariners and the Padres. Two unlikely teams to make the World Series. I'm just throwing it out there.
Not very star-studded, it's like big market teams,
Right. Which I think would be great for baseball in the fact that it's parity, right? Like it's not the same teams over and over again. I don't know how it would be regionally, but
Rob Manfred would have his way, and he would make it, where the Mariners are playing and then having to travel.
Yeah.
And Rob Manfred will have his way to get the big market team in there, at least one of them.
Well, I have a West Coast World Series, so
Rob
that
Manfred
is
sucks.
Mariners. I have the Mariners facing the Padres, and I am going with, after years and years and years of drought, the Seattle Mariners are your 2023 World Series champions.
Wow.
Yeah.
They same thing. They came out of nowhere last year a little bit, built up.
Mm-hmm. Got the experience and put it together maybe in that second year in the playoffs.
Maybe the big dumper can get them over, that big ledge there.
Yeah. She's like the big dumper.
Cal Raleigh, that was his nickname, Big Dumper. He was dumping him over the right field wall.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. So that is our predictions as far as the teams. We do have some predictions just for fun on who we think is going to win Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, all the major awards in baseball. Real quick, we won't go too deep into this. AL Rookie of the Year, go.
AL Rookie of the Year? I have got Gunnar Henderson. I think he's a favorite. Doesn't help that he's on my fantasy baseball team either. But he's a power lefty. He's going to poke it over the wall there. Poke it over the wall. I think he hits at least 20 home runs for him, 20, maybe 25.
Well, he had a pretty decent debut.
Right. I think he hit 4 home runs in less than 20 games.
Yeah. And he hit to like 260, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, in short order. So, all right, Brandon, your AL Rookie of the Year?
I really wanted to pick Gunnar, but I'm going to go with Volpe.
Volpe? So Volpe, oh man, Volpe. He just annoys me because it was like he was not in the fantasy world. It was like, oh, Volpe, $1. He's only worth $1, but Corbin Carroll's worth $18. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Volpe could win Rookie of the Year. He's a star. Like, how are you gonna say he's only worth $1? Then anyways, I could rant on.
Yeah, I think the protection he has in that lineup is going to help him a little bit. The Yankees factor, I think, is going to help him a little bit. So that's my pick, Volpe. My NL Rookie of the Year. Do we just want to both say this at the same time? 3, 2, 1. Corbin Carroll.
Corbin Carroll.
Yep. So. Yeah, that's why I said it was suspicious, is that both your Rookie of the Years happen to be on your fantasy team. But it is what it is.
I almost, for AL, said Tristan Casas, but there's some platoon issues maybe with left-handed, right-handed pitchers. So I went with my favorite guy.
I almost went with Senga with the Mets because he's technically a rookie, even though he's playing at like 30 years old or however old he is. So he's going to have that veteran experience of playing at professional baseball, whereas Corbin Carroll hasn't played consistently in the majors and doesn't have the pro experience, so to speak.
Right.
So moving on to another award that's just kind of out there that no one really pays attention to, but I think it's fun to predict. NL and AL Managers of the Year. We'll just rattle them off both at the same time. Or you rattle off both of yours, and then I'll rattle off both of mine.
So AL Manager, I predicted the Angels to win it. So I think Phil Nevin's going to earn that by bringing those Angels out And then NL manager, I said the Cubs were going to win the wild card. So I think that's the surprise team. You got to give the manager the work there. So I got David Ross, NL manager of the year.
Well, and that would line up, like you said, if they both those teams make the playoffs where they're not really expected to be. You would assume that they're playing good baseball. Your manager would get a boost there. That's kind of where I went on the AL side, but I went with Rocco Baldelli with the Twins. The Twins are kind of the third team in that division, like you said, in your mind. No, but a lot of people look at them with the White Sox last year were World Series favorites in a lot of spots. Right. So you would assume that this year.
But then they hired Grandpa.
Right. And then the Guardians last year won 90 games. So if Rocco Baldelli can get this Twins team into the playoffs, like you said, the pitching rotation's not great, but he's done a decent job managing that team despite not having the talent. If he could do that again, I think that puts him over the top. And then there's this guy. His name's Oliver Marmol. He's a coach for the Cardinals. That's who I'm giving NL manager to the year. I don't know why.
Moving on.
Yep. So going on. This is the more major awards. The AL Cy Young Award. Let's have you go first, Mikey. Who do you have for your AL Cy Young in 2023?
So it was not last year, but 2 years ago, Manoah broke out. Last year, he broke out even further, and I think now with the better team and he doesn't have as much pressure. He's got a year under his belt. I think Manoah takes another step. He finished third or fourth in Cy Young last year, and I think this year he takes the crown.
Yeah, his third full year in the big leagues. That's not a bad pick. He's going to be a stud, and that's why I said earlier in the episode, they've got multiple Cy Young candidates. If Gausman pitches the way he did a few years ago, he's got the chance to win it too if he can stay consistent. Last year, I think he had an under 3 ERA. But both those right. Manoah, yeah, for sure. I am going to go with an off-the-chart name.
Oh.
Yeah. He's finally pitching a full season on a team that's going to be competitive. He got a little more juiced up last year. I have this team winning the World Series, so that means that they're going to have to have some of their players step up. Luis Castillo is going to be my AL Cy Young. He's got the stuff. He's healthy. He is on a team that
it's finally competitive.
Right. He's finally competitive. So off the charts. If you're a gambling type, $1 could win you $40. So not a bad thought.
No, that's great because Castillo.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go out there and you're pitching and they're like halfway meaningless games, it's tough to get that, into the, that thrill. And now if you're guys want to go play for winners, and so that's a great thought there, Brandon.
Why, thank you. I highly doubt it comes true, but this is why we make predictions and try to have fun with it, right? Like, let's look at it. With Seattle, he had a 3.17 ERA over 65 innings. He had 77 strikeouts over 65 and a whip of 1.1. So I think you get and that was getting traded midseason and never playing anywhere else. So he's finally got some. And even with the Reds last year, he had a 2.86 ERA and was 4-4 in 85 innings. So he's healthy. He's got a chance. Who knows? You throw a buck on it, and you could win some money.
Come out of there. Yeah, that's how it happens. Teams come out of nowhere. Players come out of nowhere. Rick Porcello came out of nowhere in 2015 or 16.
Who thought J-Rod was going to do what he did last year with the Mariners, right? Like
a lot of people.
But to that standard?
To that caliber.
Right.
They expected that years from now, not in his rookie season.
Right, not in his rookie season. So you expect it, but you don't expect it to all of a sudden just come together like that. So
right.
My NL Cy Young also is going to be pitching in the World Series, per my prediction. He's never won a Cy Young. He's been close a couple of times. He almost did it with the Cubs. He almost did it with the Rangers. But Yu Darvish.
Let's go.
I think he finally he's got the stuff, man.
Dude, he's filthy. If he can just stay healthy, he's
right,
healthy.
stay healthy. He's got a chance. So, Yu Darvish is my NL Cy Young Award winner. I kind of went off the charts on a couple of these because I do like picking favorites every now and then. I did pick some favorites from my division, but I do like going off the charts and finding potential value, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the episode with our special guest. But who's your NL Cy Young, Michael?
I don't think Darvish is too off the charts. I think he's a stud. He's an ace. So my NL Cy Young is a young kid, high K, setting some records last year, Spencer Strider. If he can stay healthy, if that elbow doesn't explode like it seems like all young studs do, high strikeout guys, I got Spencer Strider just stepping up and shoving.
So currently I'm looking at some of the odds. Spencer Strider is a 10-1 odd at winning the Cy Young. That is the 5th best. Looking at Yu Darvish is all the way down 12th favorite at 32-1. So that means $1 wins you $32 back on Yu Darvish. $1 on Spencer Strider wins you $10 back on.
So one more note on my Cy Young picks: Manoah and Strider. Both are on my fantasy team.
So we are 4 for 4 on that. Another low-key pick that I've thought about for NL Cy Young.
Hayden Wieseski?
No.
Oh, you said AL, sorry.
Yeah. Zach Gallen with the Diamondbacks. I just don't know if he's going to have the support win-wise. Right?
Now, I think he's got a defense behind him. That's what I think the Diamondbacks have, is they have a defense.
Right.
And an offense, but they do not have pitching. They got Zach Allen. They got Mad Bum. They do have a guy coming, the minor league strikeout leader of 2022 in Brandon Pfaft. He was
nice
the
name,
strikeout
Brandon.
leader in 2022.
If you look at his spelling, it kind of sounds like a fart, though.
Pfaft. Pfaadt.
Does that not sound like a fart noise? Like,
I mean, the Diamondbacks. If that came up, I don't even know if that's how you say it. Fat. If he came up and they had another pitcher, I think they have another guy waiting in the wings. Clicked. The Diamondbacks could be a good team.
Oh, they're
Christian
a fun
Walker?
young team. Yeah, man. It's a good. They've got a lot of things to be excited about in the desert, and I think they're a year or two away, but it'll be interesting. But Zach Allen would be like my second. If I had to pick a second pitcher for Cy Young, that would be my other guess. Both kind of down on the charts. So we both picked our AL and NL Cy Young. Let's move on to NL and AL MVP. I think we're both trending in the same direction on the AL MVP. He's going into his contract year, with the final year most likely with the Angels. He, to my mind, is going to get the biggest contract ever given to a human being in professional sport after this season. I'm going Shohei Ohtani, AL MVP.
Shohei Ohtani. Yep. But last year, if Judge didn't hit 60-plus home runs, it was Shohei. Mm-hmm. And Shohei really didn't even have that incredible of a season. And I think in a contract year, like you said, he just boosted himself to get ready in the WBC, won it all, did well in it. He's going to start off hot in April and never stop.
So I'm going to switch directions here. So Judge, we didn't pick him for AL MVP. My trivia question this week is MVP related. So Judge and Paul Goldschmidt would be going for back-to-back MVPs. Who was the last player to win an MVP in back-to-back years?
Barry Bonds.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
In 2012 and 2013, Miguel Cabrera went back-to-back, and in 08 and 09, Pujols went back-to-back. So those were the last two who did it. Those were the last two to do it for AL and NL. Barry Bonds is the only player ever in Major League Baseball to have back-to-back seasons of MVP twice, and he did it in 91 and 92 with the Pirates, or was it 92 and 93, and then in 2001 through 2004, so 4 straight years of MVP with the Giants, and he won in 1990 with the Pirates as
straight
well.
years he won MVP?
And I think he won 3 of 4 with the Pirates in the early 90s. So
wow.
That's why he was already a Hall of Famer before the whole steroid thing in my mind. And then we are where we are. So that has wrapped up the trivia portion. Okay, so do you have a repeat in the NL? Will Paul Goldschmidt be the first one since Miguel Cabrera or Albert Pujols? Would he be another Cardinal to go back-to-back in your mind?
No, I think he will be in the top 3. But I don't think he wins it. I don't think last year was a great year for him.
Mm-hmm.
He had an off year the year before. I think his first year with the Cardinals, coming out of the humidor. But then bounced back. He's getting older. I want to say he's going to be 34, 35, 36 next year.
He's going to be 3 ages. Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna be
34, 35, 36. Man,
so I don't have him back to back.
He gets old quick.
in 1 year, in one season, he's 3 different ages.
He's playing at the age of 35 currently.
At the age of 35, right?
Yep, and he will turn 36 in September.
Who's the oldest MVP? And is that the old? Would that be the oldest? That's a good trivia question there, Brandon.
I guess I can look that up for you right now. But
so I will tell you, as you look that up, I will tell you all about.
No, Barry Bonds was at 40 years old in 2004.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. And then Willie Stargell in 1979 was 39 years old.
Okay, so before the roids. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Then Dennis Eckersley in 1992 as a pitcher, nonetheless. So, who'd you pick?
I've got a young kid, young stud, 25 years old, about to turn 26 on April 2nd. Braves third baseman Austin Riley.
Braves third baseman Austin Riley. You don't. He had an incredible season. He just got paid too, didn't he? They gave him an extension in the fall.
Did they? I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did. So I think Austin Riley had a great year. He actually finished in MVP. He got MVP votes last year. He batted 273, 349, 529 with 38 home runs.
Not bad.
I think if you look at his splits, though, first and second half, the second half, I don't know if he got tired, if he was injured. He went from, in the first half, hitting 285 to the second half, 257. His slugging dropped from 575 to 463. So I wonder if there was an injury. Was he tired? Something happened that his performance tallied down a little bit. So I think if Riley can stay strong and put on that first half the whole year, which isn't even outrageous to ask for, 285 batting average, I think he takes it home NL MVP.
So you kind of went off the charts there. Austin Riley, as I look at Vegas Insider, which takes a look at Sportbook across country, kind of has him down the charts. He is he's 11th at 16-1 in the NL to win the MVP award. So 11th isn't bad, but you got some value there on a betting standpoint. So plus 1,600 means for every dollar you bet, you win $16 back. I didn't realize this was going to be as high up on the charts as it is. I am going with a Brave as well, but a Brave who is finally healthy, a Brave who was thought of as probably the best prospect 3, 4, 5 years ago coming into the game. Ronald Acuna, he's finally going to play a full season, hopefully. Right, 2020 he played shortened season. He only played about 75% of the games. He did get MVP votes his rookie year, his second year, and even in that shortened season where he only played 46 out of the 60 games. And then he got hurt in 2021, and he was on track for what I think was an MVP type of year at 283, 24 bombs through 82 games. That's half a season. So, he's close to 50 home runs, batting 283 and driving in 104 in 2021. I think he probably is at the top of the charts there in 2021. He's healthy. He's coming back. He's got people all around him. He's got Austin Riley that you just mentioned. He's got Ozzie Albies. He's got all these guys. He's got the Rookie of the Year out in center field. So that lineup, and now you're adding Sean Murphy to the lineup. He's got protection all across the board.
Oh, up and down, up and down.
Right. And that's why I think the Braves are a very good pick to win that NL East. And I think we're going to hear more on that from our professional gambler here in just a few minutes. But I'm going with Ronald Acuna Jr. as my NL MVP. Now, his odds are closer to Austin Riley than they are to the favorite. Acuna's the third favorite right now at plus 1,000. So that means for every dollar you win $10. That the favorite in the NL right now is Juan Soto at plus 550. Mookie Betts is plus 950. Trey Turner actually is fourth at plus 110. Trey Turner is in fourth at plus 1,100. And then Fernando Tatis. So two of the top five are, look at this. Three of the top six are Padres. And that's Soto,
Machado, and Bogarts.
Tatis, and Machado. No, Bogarts is down the list. He is 15th on the list. So, yeah. Manny Machado is 6th. Tatis is 5th. Goldschmidt, the winner last year, is 7th. I wouldn't put my money there. And then Freddie Freeman, also the MVP 2 years before that, is in 8th. And then Nolan Arenado, the runner-up last year, is in 9th at plus 1,200 at plus 2,000, depending on what sportsbook you're looking at. So there's value out there. I do think that I don't think it's going to be Juan Soto. I do think it's going to be off the charts, down the charts from there. But, man, Ronald Acuna. So we just gave out our awards. We are circling back on our second bourbon. Earlier you said we're taking 2 bourbons here at the podcast. We already did that once.
You did one podcast. What?
We already did that, though.
For which one?
We had a podcast where we did 5.
We did 5?
Clearly you remember a lot about National Barrel Company.
Oh, yeah. No, 5? We did 6 or 7.
We rated 5. We may have drank more than that afterwards, but yeah, so this is our first actual episode where it's not just an interview, where we've done multiple. So where do you have this on a rating scale?
I enjoy this pour. I think it's missing something on the back end that makes it an everyday player for me. Front end great, the back end's flat again. So I think it's a bench player.
So he's benching both of them. I'm going to everyday player this. I think it is a better everyday player than the white label. I would go 1 and then 2 in my book, with the black label coming up at top. Partially makes me think I overrated the white label.
Overrated the white label?
I think.
Would you do it?
They're both everyday. No, I said it was a
everyday.
bench, but trended towards everyday just because of the price point. And that's another thing I do want to point out about this. It's $50. It's $49.99. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So
Yes.
the MSRP is $49.99. So these are very affordable bottles. I believe the rye is $60. So that's even not too bad for a rye either. I think they're going to be great buys for anybody out there. So go check out Bardstown Bourbon Company. They're doing great stuff. If you haven't been to the distillery, that is a must-stop along the Bourbon Trail. Fusion, Discovery Series. They've got a lot of different collaborations out there that are winning awards, and they're just really good stuff. I know Dad's Drinking Bourbon has done several reviews on a lot of their stuff. So if you want to check out some of the collaboration pours, we haven't had those sent to us. We would love to. Hint Brandon at the Daily Dram. But the stuff I have got my hands on, this will tell you how much I've liked it. If you're on YouTube, you see how low these bottles are. And I got these, let's say, 7 weeks ago. It's been one of the front pours on my bar. And that's why I'm going with everyday on both of them. Because they are close to an almost at least once a week I'm pouring one of these. So
Yeah, makes sense.
that is it on the bourbon portion. And we just rated and reviewed bourbon. We talked baseball. Real quick, Michael, I know you're not a huge gambler. Can't do it legally in Alabama. But I do know a couple of professional gamblers, a couple of professional handicappers who give out picks, who give out thoughts on gambling. We now welcome in Matt Maltepis, a huge guy on Twitter and in the gambling world when it comes to sports gambling and betting, part of the College Kids. The TCK_experience on Twitter is where you can find him. Matt, good to have you with Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. Every day's a blessed day. Every day's a great day. I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, you can go follow your personal account as well. You've always got the words of wisdom and all the great advice on your personal account on Twitter as well. So happy to have you.
Too much.
What's that?
I said you flatter me too much.
No, you do. I always try to retweet them when I see them. But awesome
Appreciate
stuff. I've been following you guys for 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how long it's been at this
Wow.
point. But you guys are killing it in March Madness. Just had an amazing weekend, but we're shifting gears to baseball season. Opening day, when this podcast drops, is tomorrow. So we're a day away from baseball. When it comes to sports gambling, a lot of states are finally getting it to be legalized. I know here in Ohio, it's going to be our first baseball season with sports gambling. It's been around in other states. What do you look for when it comes to the lines? How do you handicap a baseball game in general?
Well, I mean, it depends on the sport, obviously, but in terms of baseball, right? So pitchers are huge. Pitching is obviously how numbers are dictated. And you want to be able, sometimes I'm making like 10 calls a day. I'm making 15 calls a day, 20, trying to find out what's going on at the stadium, what's going on at the game, trying to figure out, what's going on with the pitcher. His shoulder's hurt and he's having velocity issues. His velocity has dropped down, right? And is that reflected in the price of the game? It might be minus 160, right? Take back plus 140, but they're not accounting for the pitcher who's dealing with soreness in his shoulder that no one's talking about, and his velocity, his miles per hour on his balls and dropped down. So, there's so many different factors to really gauge bullpens. It's so many different variables that are constantly changing, but you want to try to find your edge whatever way you can. And that's the most important thing. What's your number? Because the books come out with a number, right? But where's that number going? That's the difference. So, we purchase numbers, especially in the baseball season, huge. Over the accumulation over the whole season, you're betting how many games a day, how many, like there's 162 games in a season. So it's all about the number, especially in the baseball season.
So as I'm going to take this to a weather part of it, as a meteorologist, weather impacts baseball, we know that, but how does that impact lines? How does that impact whether or not you're playing a game or not?
Well, I mean, there's a thing called the home run favorability index. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have, from your dad.
You have. Yes, the home run favorability index is a very big factor. But, all right, so certain fields, right, are much more prone to higher totals and prone to certain weather conditions, right? You look at Wrigley Field. When that wind's blowing out, it's different than Oakland blowing out. You understand?
Right, yeah.
Or Colorado, for example, and the altitude, better than anyone.
Yeah.
Right? So you get the right pitcher in the right spot with the right team and the right variables, like I said before. And, if I have a checklist and I'm checking all of them off, you understand, whether it's altitude, it's this, wind's going out, pitcher, okay, with the hitting, the way they've been hitting lately, okay, this guy was injured, but now he's back in the lineup. Bryce Harper was out the whole season. Now he's back and he's playing in Colorado. Whatever the case is, you're lining up all these factors, check it off. And you make a decision off of that, man. You make your decision off the, different variables you have. Say it once again. And what's not factored into the line is huge.
So value is basically what
It's
you guys
all
are
value.
looking for.
Everything's value, right? So value is what we're looking for. That's why I said earlier, it's not about the number that comes out. It's about where that number's going. I take plus 140. That line drops to plus 110. Understand? Closing line value, CLV. At the end of the day, throughout the course of the season, it usually adds up and it, turns in your favor. So yeah, man, every day's a grind, especially in baseball season.
Right.
It's the biggest grind, more so maybe than other seasons, because it's games every single day. There's no break. It's not like NFL where you have 7 days from Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. You know what I mean?
Right. You've got time to build your statistics and your data. Yeah.
Let everything marinate. So this is constant. Like, we have sheets and sheets and sheets of data that we keep track of. Like, it's very tedious. It's much more tedious. Yeah.
So you'd say it's the most tedious sport to handicap?
In terms of tedious, yes, it is 100%. In my opinion.
What about most difficult?
Most difficult. What is the most difficult? Some sports I do not attack, like NHL. So for me, the NHL, like I leave that for other people. You know what I mean? I can't do the NHL. That's not my forte. That's not my avenue. So for me personally, the NHL would be the hardest.
So tomorrow will be opening day. We're talking betting on a day-to-day basis, but overall there's future bets. There's season wins, over, under. How do you decide? Like, what gives you that value?
Well, first off, you got to look at the field of competition and see the way the teams have progressed or they've regressed in your estimation, right? So, okay, this team, they don't have the pitching to last long term, right? This team, they're overvalued, and you're weighing the divisions. Okay, opponents, they have this many matchups against them, bam, bam, bam. And for example, we went with the Braves NL East winners to win the NL East. Now, we looked at last year, the Phillies. I love the run they made. Trust me, I'm a Philly guy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that ended up going in their favor, right? In Atlanta now, look at who's coming back for them. Soroka. And you saw him in spring training. Like, so, okay, that's a plus now. Bam, you got that.
Acuna the full year.
Exactly, right? So you keep on adding in these things, and you look at how they were last year compared to that to the Phillies. In order to replicate success like that, again, it's very hard to replicate something like that. And even then, the Phillies, you know, they're dealing with some issues now. You look at that division, you look at Bryce Harper, he's hurt. Reese Hoskins just got hurt, right? So, you know, you want to compare it to the field, compare it, like, for division future, compare it to the division, obviously. And you want to be able to keep track of all the ins, all the outs. If someone underperformed last year, right, their hitters underperformed on a basis, you know, hitting below their averages, and you know they're better hitters. Well, maybe they're dealing with issues, they're dealing with injuries. So there's a multitude and plethora of factors that you factor in. But yeah, we are on the Braves to win the NL East, so that's a free move. Lock it in.
So lock it in. You just heard it. Braves to win the NL East. I'm assuming that's plus money. I don't have the actual odds in front of me, but I'm assuming it's probably what, plus 200?
Plus 110 we took.
Plus 110. Okay.
Yeah.
So for gamblers who are just starting out, plus 110 means for every $100 you bet, you would receive $110 back as your winnings. Yes, in return.
Exactly.
You get your original $100 back too. People don't understand how that all works all the time.
So you're risking 100 to win 110. So that's what plus 110. If it was minus 110, you'd risk minus 110 to win 100. Exactly.
So thank you for breaking all that down. Is there anything this baseball season? One thing, I guess, the biggest question with the new rules this year or the new schedule, they're playing less in their division and more outside of their division. So how did that handicap, or how did that come into handicapping this season opposed to last?
So, yeah, new rules. So, all right. We have new rules, but the thing is there's no data on how – obviously you have spring training, some data, a little bit, right? But you really don't have the data necessarily to know exactly how it's going to come. Everything's going to change, but we are expecting more scoring, right? We're expecting the pitchers don't have the time they used to have, right? Now, so you have all these different factors, all these different things, and they, in my estimation beforehand, point to more scoring and more probably totals coming out higher or whatnot. We'll see when the numbers come out with the, you know, throughout the season if the books adjust accordingly. Now, if they don't, there's going to be value on the overs, on, you know, the hitting teams and whatnot. So, yes, that's something to look at, definitely. That's something actually that slipped my mind before coming onto this podcast, but thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Well, it's been awesome having you on. I know you guys have been killing it in the NCAA the last couple of weeks. You, your brother, your dad. You can go find them at thephillygodfather.com for all of your sports gambling advice and needs. Any last thoughts on baseball season, basketball season? This is your time to get something off your chest.
We've got 2 free moves for March Madness Final Four.
Right.
San Diego State under. And then we're going to go with the over in Miami, UConn over 148. So lock those in. San Diego State was under 132, and we went over in Miami, Florida, UConn over 148.5, just in case you guys missed it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you to all of you guys. You guys, the whole crew, is fantastic. At least they've been to me, and I know you guys are on Twitter. I follow all of you guys, so go find them at TCK_experience. That's the college kids, you, Bobby, and you just added another member to your team, right?
Yes, we did. Maya Gasman. Yeah, she's. We've been teaching her for a little bit now. We're teaching her the ropes, and she's got a really good, I'd say, handle on things. So stay tuned for Maya. A lot of things planned, and I'm just happy for what's to come, the future. Thank you for having me.
Of course,
it was awesome coming on and talking baseball.
Real quick, one last question. We are a bourbon and baseball podcast. We touched on the baseball part. Do you like bourbon? Do you like whiskey?
So, I don't drink much, right? I'm going to be honest. I drink a lot of coffee, but no, if I had to drink any type of whiskey, just give me an old fashioned, man. Old fashioned. Yeah, I mean,
and any type of old fashioned?
Nothing in particular. I usually I drink more so. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink a little vodka. That's just my opinion. That's how I am. But when it comes to whiskey, no, I don't have any specific preference because I don't have it often. But
yeah, well, we'll have to get a sample sent out to you or something.
Please, I'd love to.
Yeah, and go check out their merch too. I tell you, the most comfortable hoodie I've ever had, the College Kids Experience hoodie that I got. So go check them out, and you can find him on Twitter as well at Matt Maltepes. MattMaltepes. So thanks again for joining in. We loved having you. We'll probably try to check in later on the season, maybe after a couple of months, to see how the books have maybe changed things, how the season's been going, and if there's anything you want to talk about then.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much. I'm more than happy and more than willing to come back on. So just send me a message, let me know, and I'm right back on.
Awesome. And again, a big thank you to Matt Maltepes from Philadelphia. He's a Phillies fan, but he just gave out a free pick, 3 free picks, actually. 2 of them you can try to get in as quick as possible. He gave out the San Diego State under 132 points this weekend in the Final Four, and the Miami-UConn game over 143.5. Those are free moves. You usually have to subscribe to get those, so it's actually a pretty big thank you to Matt for giving those out with us. And also, he gave out a free baseball pick. He has the Braves winning the NL East at plus 110. That means for every dollar you bet, you win $1.10 back. So that would be $1 turns into $2.10. So go take that advice. Matt and his crew are brilliant when it comes to sports gambling. They have crushed the NCAA tournament. His brother has money on Miami Hurricanes from 3 months ago that I got information about. So if you're a gambling type, you may want to put some bets. Just be responsible, be smart. Don't throw your whole house on this, but hey, at $10 for the Braves to win the NL East, you win double your money basically. So go toss a couple of shekels and have some fun with it. It gives you something to cheer about that's not just your normal team.
Well, even if you're not for the normal team, if you put a couple bucks on it, you're into the game a little bit more.
Right.
You're not losing. You're betting, your breakfast tomorrow morning.
Right.
Maybe you don't go to McDonald's and get that cinnamon roll that.
Right. Like, I like to gamble on games. I put $10 when I bet. It's not anything that's going to make me lose my house. It's not anything that's going to win me a car, but it's just fun, and it's something to be like, oh, all right, cool. I'm not going to pay much attention. I'm not a basketball guy, but I've got money on Miami since a couple of months ago, so I've been paying attention a lot closer to Miami basketball than I thought I was going to. So if you're a fan of baseball, and if you're in a state where it's legal to gamble, find a sports book that has the best odds. There's a lot out there. There's DraftKings, there's Barstool, there's FanDuel. We are not sponsored by any of them. We would love to be sponsored by some of them, but I doubt any of those execs are listening to us. But if you are, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. But yeah, so big, again, thank you to Matt for jumping on. I think we're going to hear from him a couple of times. It was interesting to hear him talk about pitching matchups and weather, how that affects just the daily gambling, and we'll have more on that down the road. But that has been it for this episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. I know it's been a little bit longer than normal. It is our preseason one, our final preseason one.
Opening day. It's opening day podcast.
Opening days tomorrow, ladies and gents. Hopefully you're listening to this on March 30th when this podcast drops, but maybe you're listening to this in October of 2023 as we are recapping the season to see how we did on our picks. So, Michael Burns, who do you have winning the World Series?
Chicago Cubs. The Philadelphia Phillies.
So Mikey's got the Philadelphia Phillies. I have the Seattle Mariners, and they will be playing the San Diego Padres. San Diego. It means a whale's never mind. That has been all for Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast. You can expect a few more podcasts down the road. Michael's got Fantasy BNB, Fantasy Camp BNB over on Instagram. So go check them out. They'll have some more content coming up over the next couple of weeks. You can also find out more stuff here. We'll have some more bourbon reviews. Hopefully we get our hands on some Bardstown rye over the next couple of weeks. I know we've got some other bourbon to talk about, other bourbon to try, a lot of different samples. I've got like 15 samples here on the table that we need to try, Michael. So we're going to try to pump those
mystery samples
out.
Too.
And some mystery samples, and also Blue Note sent us some stuff. Bourbon Company sent us, Blue Note sent us some stuff. Barrel Bourbon Companies, Barrel Craft Spirits sent us bourbon batch 34 to try, so you can expect some of that down the road, and also a couple of other different mystery samples, as Michael just mentioned. So that has been another edition of Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon Baseball Podcast. Please, if you've made it this far, go follow us on Instagram, go follow us on Facebook, and on YouTube. Barrels N, the letter N, barrels at gmail.com is where you can email us, and Barrels and Barrels Pod is where you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Twitter is Barrels and Barrels. Michael, what's your Instagram handle?
BNB_Burns.
And that is above his head here on YouTube. Mine is at whiskey_weather. Please subscribe to us if you haven't already on YouTube. Go ahead and follow us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever you stream. That's where you can find us. Google, as well as iHeart and Amazon Radio podcasts. I am Brandon Spinner, alongside my best buddy, Michael Burns. Again, another episode of Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon Baseball Podcast. Our final one of the offseason, because Major League Baseball starts tomorrow. I can't freaking wait. Michael, any last words for our friends, family, and listeners?
Let's go.
Let's go.